Yeah, we've pushed you over the edge, Chris.
Come to the dark side.
Play hard with these things.
Luke Skywalker. I'm an asshole, just so everybody knows. Welcome to Force Connect, the only live Star Wars talk show, hanging out with you on Friday nights on YouTube. If you're listening to the replay, follow us on YouTube at youtube.com/@the SSW Network so you can join us live on Friday. You can hang out. You can call in as we do every Friday night, which we'll do again tonight. I am Pete Fletzer. I am one of your hosts, but I'm also joined. It's been a couple of weeks since we've had the whole family together, and we got them together tonight. COVID couldn't stop Nick. Nick is here. Nick, how you doing, buddy? How you feeling?
Bro,
are you over the vid?
I have been laying on my couch for the last 2.5 days. I haven't had alcohol since Monday.
Oh my God.
I have needed this night. I am feeling much, much better. I was up and about and did some mostly normal around the house stuff today. Yeah. And I'm excited to be hanging out on a Friday night talking with my favorite people.
That is awesome. And my other good friend, Mr. Chris Ryons, is hanging out with us. Chris, how you doing, buddy? How's things?
I'm doing great, Pete.
Yes.
I am ready to try to convince you two jabronis that Star Wars comics are amazing. So yeah, let's get the chit chat out of the way and let's get to it.
Well, as those of you who have seen, we've been promoting for the whole week that we're going to bring you Chris's top 10 reasons for why we should be, not just us, the people who hang out with us and aren't necessarily reading them
all
either.
People.
Star Wars comics, they said it was that t-shirt, Star Wars is for everyone, but I think Chris is going to do his best to convince us that Star Wars comic books are for everyone as well. So, but before we do that, we have, of course, we got to get all this standard housekeeping out of the way. You can find us at all your social media networks, and there's a billion of them now. There's Threads, and there's Blue Sky, and there's Tweedledum and Tweedledee, and I don't even know. I feel like half of them are made up. I don't know. Like, I'll see somebody on Twitter or X, whatever it's called now, saying, "Hey, is anybody on Gablabla?" And I'm like, "Oh shit, I got to get on Gablabla now." So I can't keep up with it. But when we do get to it, we're usually there at the SSW Network, so that will cover not just Force Connect, but it also covers Around the Galaxy, and it also covers Podcast of the Wills, our other shows. You can follow us, try to keep up with all that stuff by just going to the SSWnetwork.com, or you can join our Patreon program, patreon.com/the SSW Network, or again, you can just click on the website. And for as little as $3 a month, you can be with us when we do our interview shows, the Around the Galaxy and Podcast of the Wills. And of course, you can go to our merch shop at sswnetworkshop.com, so you can get all kinds of cool, fun stuff, t-shirts that say shill, original trilogy, living into our shill sort of reputation that we have, that we must maintain. But we are doing that, and we are going to be talking about Star Wars tonight. But we don't start the show ever without hitting at least one toast. So Christopher, why don't you've had 3 weeks in a row of toasts, and we're keeping it going. And because I don't know if if Nick is quite ready to toast yet. He's working his way back into life. It's been a long week here. So Chris, why don't you do the honors tonight?
All right. So this one goes out to every Star Wars fan who reads the comics. Nick, Pete, put your glasses down. Put them down. Everyone else out there, thank you so much for reading these comics. Hey, isn't it great to look at Star Wars from a larger view? Cheers.
Oh man, I'm drinking anyway, because you know what? It's also it's International Beer Day for those of you who aren't sure, August 4th, and International Cookie Day, chocolate chip cookie day. So I'm drinking beer. So And
Is it
maybe
cookie flavored
this,
beer?
but maybe this time next week, Chris, I will have been able to take part because maybe you'll be able to talk us into becoming
That
fans of the comic books.
maybe.
But I know that seems unlikely based on the history that we have here, but I'm excited about it because I need to be convinced. I don't always. It takes me a little bit of time. Nick, maybe we'll get into it when we get rolling. So why we don't necessarily read the comics, and then we'll get into why we should be reading the comics. But before we get started, we are going to take our first break, and when we come back, we're going to kick off the reasons why we should be reading comics. We are back here on Force Connect, the only live Star Wars fan conversation where we get you involved and we talk about all the things happening in Star Wars during the week. But I do want Chris is so engrossed.
I don't think Chris knows we're back from the break.
Huh?
Hey, we're back.
Sorry. I was just reading about all these amazing characters, Luke, Kira, everyone, and just getting so much deeper into their characters and whatnot, because you don't get that with the movies. They're great and all, but to really get into the nitty gritty. Let me put this one back in its bag and board where it belongs.
Well, before we get started, though, I do want to make sure that we mention, because we've been saying it on social media, we have a lot of friends of the SSW network, are people who are members of SAG, AFTRA, and the WGA, the Writers Guild. And as some of you, and I think almost everybody knows, they are on strike right now because they need to be properly compensated for all the hard work that they do. They need to make sure that AI doesn't take over their jobs. We actually have a clip in the YouTube channel, 2 clips of one of the spokesmen and good friend of the show, Greg Iwinski, talking about some of the details of the strike. Just to put it out there, just so we're clear, we want to reiterate that as a result of the strike and in solidarity with our friends who are the actors and the writers, we aren't going to be talking about new shows, new content, even a lot of the existing shows in any detail, any promotional way for sure, until they settle the strike, until the studios are willing to pay the writers and the actors and make sure they're protected. And it's not just Star Wars, it's any content. I mean, I don't know if you have a favorite television show or whatever. We're just not going to talk about that. We're here to protect we're here to stand in solidarity with our friends who are part of those unions. So there are ways to get involved. If you go to entertainmentcommunity.org, I believe it is, you can donate to entertainmentcommunity.org, and they're supplying money for the people who are really suffering as a result of being on strike. They may not have been getting paid well to begin with, but now they're not getting paid at all. So a lot of folks are in dire need. So please consider that. So with that said, comic books are not on strike. Comic books are a way to continue to dig deep into the Star Wars universe. But it has taken a little bit of convincing for me and Nick. It's been a little bit of a running joke, but look, I'm going to be honest. I don't read the comics, and there's various reasons for it. But I don't know. How do we want to jump into this, Chris? We asked you for 10 reasons, but let's kind of start and see what's your approach to kind of bringing this to us here.
Well, I think first I'd like to hear from both of you as to,
here it comes.
Your problem
Answer
is,
for yourself. Answer for yourself.
Like why, you refuse to be entertained. I don't understand it, but Star Wars fans act like it's homework. It's not. Oh, you put on the right music. It's an experience anyway. So let me hear from you guys. Let me know like why you don't read them, and I'll tell you why you're wrong.
Nick, I see.
I'm gonna let you start.
Yeah, I see how it's gonna be right off the bat.
Welcome back from COVID.
That's
what
right.
is your problem?
What is wrong with you? You people got a lot of things wrong with you, and I'm going to tell you about them. That's actually a really great question. And as you kind of pitched it right before the break, Pete, and I went into a panic of how do I answer this question? I don't have a lot of good reasons why I don't read the comics. I have a lot of little reasons why I don't read the comics. Laziness is probably at the top of that list, if I'm being fully transparent here. Going and getting them. Now, I know somebody's going to tell me the Marvel Unlimited app, the whatever. I'm not a Kindle guy. I'm not an audiobook guy. Like, I still like a physical book. I like a book in my hand. Now, in fairness, there's a shop less than a mile from my house. I know. I'm digging my own hole here, but that's why I respect Chris this much, is I'm going to be honest. I didn't grow up with comics, and I'm going to throw a little bit of that in there. I did have a teeny tiny run, and I think I've talked about this before, in the 90s when they killed Superman, because I grew up a DC kid, especially Superman. And it was a summer thing, and it was actually me and my dad, because my dad loved Superman. I grew up loving Superman because of my dad. And so that summer, it was during the summertime. Yes, there is Brian, and I have you to thank for that. We're going to talk about that later too. That summer that they killed Superman in the 90s, which sounds like a weird album title. Those editions of that comic book came out maybe every other week. I don't remember how frequently they came out, but it was something that my dad and I did like together over the course of the summer. Like every time a new edition of it came out, there was a comic shop in Selma, in the mall, baseball card store that had comics, and we would go and get them, and we got one for each of us, and we each had a set, and I read them. And I have them I still have them in a shoebox. It's basically one good shoebox full of the individual, each additional week or whenever they came out. I also have I guess, is it the trade that has them all combined kind of into one?
Yep.
Yep.
And it came up through like the death. And then of course they carried on from there, and they did the resurrection with the 4 different Supermen, Steel and Superboy. And I can't remember who the other 2 were.
Cyborg Superman.
Eradicator,
Cyber Superman.
Yeah. So I had all of I kept going for a while, and at some point it became that thing of like, but when does this stop? And I think I was probably, getting into high school, getting ready for college. And at some point I stopped. So I have all of those. I also, and I think this happened somewhere around that same time, I have the comic book when Bane broke Batman's back, and it's him on the cover,
same time. Yep.
with him over his knee, and it's got the Tyrannosaurus in the background, and that, I have that one issue. Didn't really follow the thread or the story. It just seemed significant, and it was something that I wanted to have.
It was really good.
I also had the Death of Superman, the special one that came in the bag, and it had like the newspaper clip and the armband and all that stuff. And I couldn't help myself. I opened it, so I have it, but it's open.
That's a mistake. You know how much that thing is worth now?
Is it? Don't tell me this.
You know how much?
Because I've tried
to tell you.
Oh my
God. $9. It's worth $9.
Exactly.
It's not going for it.
I was about to be really surprised, because I've looked every now and then thinking maybe I'm sitting on something, and that's why I've still got these, and I'm not. So anyhow, so that's really, I had that one tiny little thing of comics in the 90s, but as far as Star Wars, like, it just never happened. Like, I read tons of EU novels, but for whatever reason, the comic books just never happened. And then as I got older, as I got to the stage of life I'm in now, it's convenience. I watch shows on my phone when I go to bed. I listen to podcasts, and I don't take enough time to read regular books that I wish I did. I've actually been rereading some of the old EU stuff lately. So I just don't take enough time. I put that wholly on myself. So I'm not disinterested. I'm not opposed to comic books. I just haven't spent enough time with them.
That's fair. Now I'll take.
All right, Shill Boy, it's your turn.
I'll take a slightly different.
The Shillsbury Doughboy.
The Shillsbury. There's our new shirt. That's this week's shirt.
There it is.
Coming up, Shillsbury Doughboy. All right, excellent.
Yeah, put the Doughboy in the Jedi tunic and
Yes,
like
exactly.
a breadstick lightsaber.
It practically creates itself. It practically creates it. So
Welcome
I'll tell you
to the Photoshop
why.
writer's room. Carry on.
Right. Like Nick, I there was a period of time where I was very much into comics. I was really big into Spawn and all of the comics that came out of Image when Image was brand new. I was really big into those things. I really liked those. And then I found out what kind of an asshole what's his name is. Who's the guy who runs? Oh, I can't think of his name. He's got the toy line. McFarlane.
Yeah.
Isn't he a bit of a? He's a bit of a turd, from what I
No
understand.
one gets that high up without being a dick.
That's which is why our podcast is where it is. we need to be bigger assholes. We'll work on it. We will definitely work on it. But that being said, so I went through a little bit of run. I think we all did it at some point. But I'll tell you my problem with Star Wars comics, and this is probably gonna come across really poorly, but I feel like at times the stories just get too weird. And every time I hear people say they love weird Star Wars, I do too. But for some reason, when they get really out there, I feel like I feel like it's too much. Like who's that? What's his name? Vance what's
Baylor Valance?
Valance.
Yeah.
He looks like just a generic comic book guy, and he just I'm just giving you my opinions. These are my own opinion. This is a safe space, and I will take care of it. I also think I will say it, and we all love Charles Soule because Charles Soule has been a huge supporter of Podathon, and he's been your guest all the time. But the Kylo Ren comic book, I was trying to get back into comic books. I will share this story now for the first time. I was trying to get back into the Star Wars comic books. I was excited about the Kylo Ren run because I was like, this is going to be great. It's going to tell us the story of what happened to Kylo and what happened to Ben. And the way he wrote Ren in that series was so over the top. And it was so extreme comic booky to me as I read it, that it turned me off completely to the comics. And I, no offense, Charles does amazing things. He writes his High Republic book is supposed to be really, really good. I mean, I don't know. I haven't read that.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But that's kind of my thing. Like that's sort of my opinion of comic books. And it's weird because I love the weirdest Star Wars movies. I love the weirdest Star Wars stuff in the books. So I don't know. That's kind of where I am. And I, do you know what I mean? Like when I say comic booky, what's
Woodsy. Yeah.
Yeah, Woodsy
Absolutely.
says if you don't like goofiness,
Totally.
I recommend. Tag and Bank. I know who they are. I don't know. So that's kind of where I am. But Chris, we've asked you to put together a top 10 list of why we should be into them. We'll get it to the first couple and then we'll take our break. But first, Chris, respond to what Nick and I said.
Absolute nonsense. That's how I look at everything you guys just said. No, I respect what you're saying, even though you're completely wrong.
Loud wrong, as they say.
Loud and wrong. No. All right. So I wrote everything down. I typed it all out because you guys know me. I talk like a fullback, meaning I don't do long distance runs with my mouth. Like short bursts, and then back to the line of scrimmage. So I'm going to start by saying, and I'm going to change this up a little bit. I'm not going to give you top 10 reasons why.
Okay.
I'm going to give you 5. Because if I have to go an extra 5 to try to convince you two and everyone out there to start reading Star Wars comics, then you are lost and you don't deserve the gift of Star Wars comics. That's right, gatekeeper. That's right, I just said gatekeeper. Yes. I promised I was going to keep it even. Ooh. Okay. So I wrote it all out. So I'm just going to do this verbatim. All right, here we go. At Proaxium, We call Star Wars comics the connective tissue of Star Wars storytelling. You want to know how Luke went from the brash, semi-unsure young adult wanting to further his knowledge of the Force and broken after finding out about half of his parentage in Empire Strikes Back, to the stoic, more sure of himself, powerful Jedi we see in Return of the Jedi? The comics got you covered, and it's canon. The stories there, they aren't throwaways. The writers craft these stories with the same respect they would if they were making movies. That's one.
So okay, wait.
Yeah.
No. So no, it's all canon, and I think that's an important thing for me to remember and for everybody to remember. It's all canon. But so let's talk about one piece of now canon which I'm just thrown off by, and maybe you can tell me why it's okay, because I have a tough time with it. Even though I've never read the comic, I have a tough time with Luke having met Vader before The Empire Strikes Back, which now in the comics it has happened, and it's canon. So I can't ignore it. I can't be like, nah, that didn't happen, because now all the comic stuff is canon. How
2015.
So
no, I'm just answering Brian.
Yeah, Brian asked that question.
Oh,
he was asking what year and run are the comics canon
from 2015. Okay, so that's an issue that I have. It's almost like they're giving us like that. That's the thing that where it goes into that weird sort of zone of like, I'm not comfortable with that the story going that way. You know, honestly, I know I realized as I said that I sound like all the fandom menace assholes that I give shit to online, but that's that's.
This is going to be a long one.
You know we're doing it right when we're getting Chris to pour another one.
Right. Nick, would you care to respond to the first on the list?
Well, I'm going to say that you make an excellent point with connective tissue. I like, we've talked about the beauty in the last several years, certainly with Star Wars television, with animation, these things that we have been gifted with, that we haven't had a movie since 2019. Here we are, rolling up on 4 or 5 years later. But we've had multiple TV shows. We've had multiple animated series. And even if they weren't originally things that called to me, they were things that I could go back to and find things out. I use the example of Clone Wars all the time. Clone Wars for me is almost like a reference book. When I hear something mentioned in a different series, I go back and find the arc where that showed up in Clone Wars. Comics has the ability to also do that for me. So that is something that appeals to me and catches my attention a little bit more than, not that I assumed that it was just, crazy out there, bananas off the wall stuff, but it brings up that really good point of this is another way to fill in stories. It's not just novels. It's just not animation. It's just not TV. It's just not movies, which are 4 key significant things, but we have comics as well. So you have my attention, to say the least.
To skate back to what Pete said about with Vader and Luke's first meeting, which was in the first volume of the graphic novel for or trade paperback for Jason Aaron's Star Wars run, which started back in 2015, which was running at the same time as the Darth Vader run by Kieran Gillen. When that happened, and when I saw that, and I was like, wait a minute, that ain't right. And then it clicked, and I was like, I'm like, this is canon. Like, they're really doing something with this universe. And just like that, I was on board with it. Like it's canon that, they're building something here. And that's one of the reasons why, like, it fascinated me to no end when my thought process, my status quo about what Star Wars is shaking up like that. I don't know. Other people are just like, they don't like it. When they're so rigid where and I'm not saying you guys, but so rigid where any little deviation just takes them out and it ruins it for them. That sparked curiosity in me so much, like almost like when I saw the first image from Return of the Jedi, which is Luke on the sail bar. It's like it just opened my mind up more. I enjoyed that so much. They did that. Like, so now Empire Strikes Back is not the first meeting. It's here. I'm like, that's so cool. That's so cool. And if they're going to open up the storyline that much, there's no way that Luke and Vader would not have bumped heads before, meeting 3 years later after A New Hope in Empire Strikes Back. I'm so glad that they were able to intermingle these characters more. Same thing when they brought in Son of Staros, and I was like, he had a wife before. What? And it was just like it was so. And of course it wasn't. That was all the scheme and whatnot, scam. But that was so cool to see, and I just love that. It and I'll get into it with some of the other notes I have in here. But it broadened my view of what Star Wars could be, instead of just what they've done in the movies, and stick to that and don't go beyond that too much. So those are my views on it. With Ren, I really liked that character, what they did with Rise of Kylo Ren in the Soul's Rise of Kylo Ren comic, because it showed me a Force user who's not so super stoic, and he's like laid, for the most part, they're laid back and they're cool, and they're not, what I've seen of the Jedi or what I've seen of the Sith, going forward to that. So I really dug that character, and seeing a Force user who isn't part of the, who kind of breaks the mold of what I've seen.
Yeah.
From either religion.
Interesting. Yeah, I think, and maybe honestly, it could have been just a style of the way Charles Soule wrote that character, and that's the interesting thing about comic books too. I will say, is you bring a voice to it, right?
Yep.
The way he sounded in your head when you read those frames versus the way I read it, probably completely different, right?
Here's the crazy part. Here's the crazy part with that: when they did the whole Lego thing, and they had, damn it, Gleaming
Christian Slater. Christian Slater was right. Yeah,
I was like, that's kind of perfect, because that's sort of the style that I heard in my head. So I was like, I was like, fantastic.
That's awesome. All right, well, we've gotten one of your 5 reasons. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we are going to get to the next 4 reasons, and then after that, we want to take your calls if you're hanging out with us and you have opinions on comics. If you agree with Chris, if you disagree with Chris, if you agree with me and Nick or disagree, we want to hear from you. So we're going to put that link in the chat as we get to the end of the next segment, but we're going to take a real quick break, and when we come back, we're talking more Star Wars comics on Force Connect.
You want this?
I'm the only one hereabouts who has one. Saying which, how's he gonna pay for all of this?
And we are back. And for those of you listening and didn't see the commercial, head to the sswnetwork.com, hit merch, and you can find all of our shirts. They are all borderline copyright infringement. They are all a lot of fun, and it goes. You can get a discount if you use Connect 15 in the when you sign out for the day. So, Nick, did you want to?
Yes.
Did you say you wanted to run a real quick video, and then
I want to show something real quick. I knew this was our topic this week, and we have a whole load of friends, guests of the show, friends who have been with us on Friday nights, various interviews, Podathon, who are all wonderful, wonderful comics people, whether they work on comics, write comics, read comics. And so I just reached out to some of our friends and, kind of enlisted them to Chris's cause to tell you and I why we're so wrong. And so I did get a video back from one of our favorites, our good friend, Mr. Corey Ryan Forrester, the Buttercream Dream himself. He sent us a video. So I'm going to throw this video in right now because it really kind of relates, especially to Chris's first point. And then we can come back and talk about it if we need to.
If there's one thing true in this world, it is this. Carrie Fisher looked extremely hot in that gold bikini. Now, if there's 2 things true in this world, it's that, plus the fact that you can't make Star Wars fans happy. You can't. I don't even think some of you like this stuff, But for all of you that are constantly saying like, oh, all we get is this the Skywalker saga, or like, I would really like to see some Han Solo stuff, or why don't they ever do a series on the High Republic or the Old Republic, or I'd really like to know what Darth Vader got up to between episode 3 and 4. Well, guess what? They do that. It's just in comic books. They talk about all this in the comic books. You should be reading the comic books. I'm not sitting here trying to tell you that watching comic books is a better experience than watching a movie. What I'm telling you is that there are endless stories that you have yet to explore. And if you want Star Wars, you don't have to wait for your patron saint, Dave Filoni, to spit something out at you. You can go down, holler at my friend Chris at the local bookshop, and you can start reading these stories right now. And the best thing is, when you're reading a comic book, you can do it in privacy. You can sneak off while you're taking a dookie, hiding from your wife, and read some comic books. You can't watch a movie in there. She'll hear you. Comic books are wonderful. They're easily digestible. And again, it's a great way to explore more of the galaxy that is far, 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 far away. I'm telling you, dude, they're awesome. I read Star Wars comic books every single night. May I suggest the solo Darth Vader stuff? I think it came out in like 2011 or something. Chris will probably correct me on that. But yeah, really good stuff. Also the Old Republic stuff. Mwah.
I mean, from the forests of Georgia themselves, the buttercream dream coming in.
Can I
from
just
the top
say
rope.
how I am so I am so happy that our podcast, our little show, has gotten us to be good friends with Corey Ryan Forrester, because I loved him before he even talked to us. I used to laugh my ass off at the buttercream dream stuff, and now, and here he is. He's a nerd like us. He's one of us.
He is.
He's one of us. Chris, any comments?
I wish I was at everyone's local comic shop. I'd be making so much money. Also, yeah, it's not 2011, it's 2015, Corey. All good. But yeah, he spoke nothing but the truth. Nothing but the truth.
Buttercream always spits facts, right?
It's Star Wars you can take anywhere. You know, when it comes to reading, I like to be in the zone where there's nothing else around me to mess with my concentration. And yes, I read Star Wars comics on the shitter. So that's me time. Boom. That is just blinders, and I'm right there on it. Sometimes when I do read them, like if I'm here reading them or something, I'm playing music. Like there's all kinds of Star Wars music on like YouTube. Like, you know,
I was say, do you throw on like a Williams soundtrack or something like that?
No, I throw on. It's weird. No, I don't throw on like the official movie stuff. I throw on stuff from like Samuel Kim and a few other music makers out there who do Star Wars style stuff.
Okay.
Cool. And there's a few channels that I cannot think of the name right now who do stuff like damn near every like occasion. Not so much for comics, but something that's like in the same vein of what I'm reading.
Brian Lindley, I call the shitter Echo Base. Well done. Well done. That's the win.
I love that.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Maybe that's another t-shirt.
I would say there's another t-shirt right there.
Chris, what's your second reason why we should be on top of this stuff?
Okay.
Get out
Number
the notes.
2.
You're on it.
A galaxy explored.
Okay.
When folks watch the Disney Plus shows, sometimes a planet is visited that seems weird to them because it's unlike anything they've seen in the movies. Weird settings, different cultures and inhabitants. As a comics reader, it is par for the course. I think back to when people were so weirded out by the Mandalorian and that what was that planet with Lizzo and Jack Black or whatnot. Like, that's just weird. I'm like, no, it's not. Not to me, because just like what Palpatine was saying to Anakin, you know, like not just the narrow-minded dogmatic view of the Jedi or the narrow dogmatic view of the Jedi. You need to see a larger view of the Force, and that's the way that's why I read the comics, I read the books, like I do the audiobooks on those. You know, of course, the movies and shows and the games, because the games to me have like, besides the comics, have like the best Star Wars stories.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So that's
that's okay. So you're on your second of 5. You're 40% in, and I agree with you on that one. I think that makes sense because there are a lot of we buzz through a planet on one of the shows or one of the movies, and they put so much effort into the writers who are on strike and the actors who are on strike put so much effort into bringing those things to life for 45 seconds. It's a well-earned deeper dive. So I can dig that one.
Well, and it brings up an interesting point that is just hitting me as we're talking about this. So forgive me as I work it out in public in front of everybody, but we get so many complaints all the time about the movies and everything's at Tatooine. Why is everything at Tatooine? Tatooine. We're so tired of it. I'm not tired of it personally. I don't give a crap. Like, it's Star Wars. That's where it happens. But if you look at it, Tatooine, for the most part, that everybody complains about, we get too much of it, is in 9 movies, because we don't get Tatooine in Rogue One. We don't get Tatooine in Solo.
We don't get it
or Empire.
We don't get it in the sequel.
Well, I was saying we may not even get it in all 9 of the saga films, but I'm saying it's the movies and the TV shows.
We just tag team actually you. That was
No.
Yeah. Again, working this out on the fly. But my point is, and it kind of circles back even to Chris's first point, there's so much in animation that doesn't take place on Tatooine and does exactly what Chris just said with this second point. It expands, all the worlds that the Bad Batch is going to as the Space A-Team from planet to planet, views and missions and things. Clone Wars, Rebels, like, we're jumping all over the place. We're going to, all these different spots. That's exactly your point with comic books is, if you want another reason, if you're sick of Tatooine, go read a comic book. How about that? Go check out some other planets. Go check out some other locales and exotic locations that, again, are fleshed out. And it also speaks to what, Pete's thing has always been, which is there are multiple windows and doors into the Star Wars galaxy for people who consume media of all kinds. I'm not inclined towards comic books. I'm inclined towards TV shows because I'm lazy. Movies and TV shows that I can, watch or put on in the background because I've seen them a million times. But in those things, whether it's books, comics, the video games, like you said, getting to flesh out new worlds in video games in the Jedi Survivor series, it gives so much more. It adds so many layers to the story. It creates, you're painting with more colors and more brushes. So I guess my point is, if you're one of the people that's sick of Tatooine, go read a comic book. Here I am back this up. What's happening? We're only 2 points in.
And there's there are comics that do go, to Tatooine, of course, like,
sure.
The Obi-Wan comic, did it. They've gone back to Tatooine a few times, like I think not the Han Solo comic, but of course, like some of the Jabba one shots and things like that. Like, you'll see Tatooine, but it's not sprinkled in as much as it is in like the Disney Plus shows or the movies, for sure.
Yep,
no doubt.
All right, point number 3. I'm glad you didn't do 10, Chris, because we are having so much fun with these. 10, we would have been here till Wednesday. So
yes,
this is good. Okay, 3.
Okay, 3. Make Solo 2 happen.
Oh,
nice.
Is there a hashtag in that one, or?
But yeah. All right. So unlikely we'll get that. But thanks to Star Wars comics and writer Charles Soule, we get something a lot of fans were not expecting, and that was the return of Kira to Star Wars.
Yeah,
that was important. That was huge. What I'm saying is, bringing beloved characters back in live action can be difficult. Budget, casting, logistics, etc. With comics, it's a little easier. Sometimes done better. I said it. Also, comic writers have an affinity for obscure characters and references. Can bring some references can be massaged. You can massage them into canon and make it work. For example, Kevin Scott has a thing for that Green Rabbit from the old Marvel Star Wars comics, Jackson. And in War Bounty Hunters, a story that chronicles what happened with Fett's journey, taking a carbonized Boba Fett to Jabba the damn Hutt. Charles Soule made a reference to the Fromm Gang. The Fromm Gang is this obscure gang from the cartoon, which you guys know is like my favorite, Star Wars Droids.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I thought that was amazing that they did that. And I geeked hard for that. And I messaged him like immediately. I said, thank you. Thank you for putting them in. And I may have geeked out about that more than Kira's return. I can't even explain to you how huge that is for the comics and that how many eyes I put on the comics. So that's number 3.
So interestingly, I have a I promised him I wouldn't mention his name, but he's a writer in one of the multimedia areas. And when the Kira comic came out, I reached out to him and I said, this means Solo 2 is dead, right? And he said, if they're going into that depth for that story of Kira, it probably is, because it tends to be, and tell me what you maybe respond to this, Chris, but I don't think we have yet seen, I mean, we've seen Cobb Vanth come to life from the books, but I don't think we've seen a story originate in comics that has come to the screen yet, have we? And the reason I think that's important here is because the backstory I think that we would have expected in a Solo 2, which I still hope happens, I really do.
Yes.
Which one?
Black
was
Chrysanthemum. Black Chrysanthemum.
Yes. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's true.
That's one, and there may be more that I'm on the spot. I'm not remembering.
Right.
But yeah, Black Chrysanthemum was. Whew, my God! If you guys would have seen me, when he popped up, oh, it's Black Chrysanthemum, bro. It's Black Chrysanthemum. That's what he called him in the comics. That's what I call him.
Not Santo or Santi as
Santo, whatever. Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
But no. But the full story, with the extension of the Kira story that I think we would have seen on film, would have been there. And okay, but I'll say that the War of the Bounty Hunters is one of those series that I think, again, I don't read a lot of the comic books. I did pick up pieces here and there, thanks to my friend at the local comic shop, Mr. Chris Ryons. I did pick up some of it, and the point is, in fact, I think I even did one of your Bro Axiom bits on one of those, I think, which at this point, incredibly ironic.
I was thinking about that. And I was like, I had to write that for him.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, he wasn't reading it. So I didn't mind that at all. I didn't know.
But the point that I'm making there though is that she
was. Yep.
The War of the Bounty Hunters had some stuff that I thought was a little bit out there, right? It was interesting, the ripped hut and things like that. They were like all like the
I thought it was awesome.
But it was
why should they all look the same?
No, I'm not saying they should, but what I am saying is, you know what it is? I think it's and so the difference is between me and a fandom menace dumbass jagoff, as you put it last week, Chris, is I'm never going to give anybody shit for loving the comics. It's just not my thing, right? Like, so like that when the stories go there
for now,
but I'm never once right. But I love where the stories go. It just is weird for me the way it happens. It's not my Luke Skywalker, but it's not what I'm expecting. So I think that's all right. And I'm starting to come around a little bit here, Chris. You're starting to talk me into it a little bit. So what
I can do, I'll save that part to the end.
Okay, cool. So do you want to go to your next point?
Sure. It's a short one.
Okay.
Okay. So there have been many instances where the comics rival or surpass the movies and shows. There, I said it.
In which way?
With just character development, with the action, with just story elements and everything like that, man. Like there are runs, especially with what Charles Soule is doing right now. I'm sorry, what Charles Soule's doing. I'll get into that part later with Ethan Sachs and all those guys. But I'll take Charles Soule's Star Wars run for right now. There was stuff with this commander who worked under Tarkin. Her name was Commander Zara, and she went after her Star Destroyer, which is called Tarkin's Will, had most of the people on there had friends and family who died on the Death Star, and to them, Whereas, this is this is their government. This is their way to make peace. And then here come these terrorists who come and destroy it and kill all their friends and loved ones. People who lost spouses. You know what I mean? People lost sons and daughters on that thing. Thanks, Luke.
Hero, my ass.
You're a rotten bastard. But yeah, that particular run and her, her determination through all of her failures, to kill Leia, to destroy what's left of the Rebel Alliance after the Battle of Hoth has been. that was amazing. Like that arc in particular, and I forget what the name is, it's back there somewhere. I was reading that and I had like the music playing and everything. I was like, this is better than the movies. I was like, there, I said it. I don't care.
It's
from my point of view, Brian. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's again, I think it's. And maybe there's a certain type of comic that would work better for me, because I'll tell you, there's the comics that I have read from beginning to end. Interestingly, both had Thrawn. I read the extended universe Dark Empire series, which I loved. As weird as, and oddly enough, that's really weird. It's got all the the clone emperors and all that stuff. And I loved the graphic novel version of the first Thrawn book.
The canon one.
Yeah,
it was good.
I thought that was a really cool way to do it. So yeah, all right, so you have one left. Why don't we take one more break? We'll get to your last point, and then we'll also open up the lines for some calls, but we're gonna take a real quick break, and when we come back, we're gonna be talking about more Star Wars comics.
It's Star Wars radio-controlled R2-D2. 2 9-volt and 2C alkaline batteries not included. You can make R2-D2 move, beep, and flash his light by wireless radio control.
Hey, let me try.
You can make R2 move forward.
Look out, Dad!
Backward, turn and beep.
Hurry, turn, Dad!
Radio-controlled R2-D2 from the Star Wars collection by Kenner.
Escape pod landing. Where am I?
It's the new Star Wars Land of the Jawas that you put together. Action figures sold separately. You can move the action lever and make the Jawa capture R2-D2.
R2? Are you all right? What are they doing to you?
You can raise the elevator and make R2-D2 disappear into the sandcrawler.
Hang on, R2. I'm right behind you. Me too.
Kenner's new Star Wars Land of the Jawas. Action figures each sold separately.
Were watching
R2-D2.
You did. I mean, yeah. So if you were watching the live video version, we just showed 2 classic Star Wars toy commercials. Here's what I'm putting a challenge out to the Kiner brothers if they're watching, and I'm sure they are. I mean, why wouldn't they be? Bring that Star Wars music back into the music from the commercials. That dun, 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 dun. It almost sounds Star Trekky, but it would work. That's the challenge.
That's a song that played in my head while I was playing with my Star Wars figures back in the day too.
Yep.
Oh my God! Yeah. Oh.
All right, I have to bring this to attention because I saw Chris react. You haven't even talked. This is from Eric Brown in the chat. You haven't even talked about some of the biggest stars of the comics in Dr. Aphra, 000, and BT1. They should be a big enough reason on their own to get into the comics. I saw Chris agreeing very strongly with that. And I also wanted to add, also a good friend of the podcast, of the show, Heather Antos reached out, or I reached out to her. She had a crazy busy week. She couldn't get a video together for us, but she did send me an email. And this is what she said, directed at Pete and I. She said, you can yell at Pete and Nick this way. She said, I will send BT and 000 after them if they don't read the comics. And if they don't understand why that should be something they should be afraid of, well, they really should read the comics.
Please run. Yeah. Dr. Aphra, like among all these, like these original characters that were brought to the comics, Dr. Aphra, BT, and 000 are definitely, you know, and of course Black Chrysanthemum are the are probably like the four like the four like major like the ones the big standouts, and it's criminal that only 25% of them have shown up in live action yet. But I'm hoping something's coming with that. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So
because everyone knows those characters, they've got their own action figures and everything, and that's rare. There are so many awesome Star Wars characters that are that were brought up in the comics that I was like, that's an action figure waiting to happen. Yeah. Or even like, you know, different outfits that like Han, Luke, and Leia or Lando would wear. Like, don't get me started on Lando. Charles Soule's Lando story is perfection.
Yeah, Andy Hodges agrees with you. Andy says that Lando miniseries is so darn good.
It's so good. And if you don't feel like reading it, you can go to Star Wars Audio Comics YouTube channel and watch a motion comics video of the entire series. And guess who plays Lando?
Somebody who does the best Lando in the business, Puppet Lando, the original Puppet Lando. All right, Chris, you got one more reason why we should be reading, and I have to admit, I'm intrigued enough to probably pick up some comics at this point. So.
Okay, all right. Number 5. Every character you love from the movies are fleshed out more and helps make them whole. Right now in Soul's Run, where we're seeing Luke's journey to Jedi, as well as seeing glimpses of the man he becomes post Return of the Jedi and beyond. Vader's metaphorical armor starting to crack with his current Vader run. That is happening. That run has been like a damn near like a love letter to the prequels. Like it helped to strengthen the prequel. And that's another thing. These comics strengthen and enrich the movies. Greg Pak has done such an amazing job with his run. He brought in Kitster. He brought back Kitster.
That's
because you know he's totally wizard. Like he brought him and I forgot the name of their Rhodian friend who's played by Warwick Davis, but he brought both of them in to the Vader comic, and they don't even like Vader knows of course who they are. They had no idea who Vader was. Like they never found out. Spoilers. Lando's journey from rogue to rebel general, Leia's larger role in the rebel hierarchy are on full display, and we see, thanks to Ethan Sack's Bounty Hunters run, the characters like Bosk, 4LOM, Zuckuss, and more that were once like one-offs or one notes are very much they very much have a lot of depth and amazing backstories, and are likable, dare I say, lovable.
So interesting. I love that point, but maybe you have crystallized something for me that I hadn't thought about. And maybe one of the reasons why I had trouble getting into comics is because it's giving me backstory for 4LOM and Bosk and all the reasons you said. They're great, and I can't disagree. But as a Gen Xer who grew up with them in my own head, and I couldn't tell you what backstories I had, but I kind of liked not having a backstory. So now getting that backstory is just jarring. And again, and maybe once I can get over that hump for the backstory, I'll be able to embrace it. But I think that might be part of it. And again, I love that you do have a Charles Soule and Greg Pak and all those others building really good stories and making sure they're connected. And I think that's the thing that I think will pull me through, is looking at it from this sort of full story of movie, TV show, book, and comic books. That's where you're getting the story, and video games. Awesome. Nick, have you been converted or have you changed?
Well, I'll tell you this much. If he didn't think I was taking it seriously, I'm taking notes in my little fake Indiana Jones Grail diary. I've got notes right here. Because I am intrigued, and I did want to throw just a very brief shout out. Brian and Jasmine have been hanging out in the chat all night, and they recently moved, and they called me, and Brian said, "Hey, I have a bunch of Star Wars stuff, and I'd like to give it to you." And it included this huge stack of a bunch of Dark Horse classic Star Wars, more classic Star Wars. There's what else is in here? There's all kinds of stuff. Star Wars Empire, Volume 1, X-Wing Rogue Squadron, all kinds of goodies in here. All kinds of goodies in here.
Bag and board them.
Yes, sir. Duly noted. Also, Star Wars Legacy Book 1.
Nice.
Whoa.
Comics, all hardbound, one big thing of books that I can just go to town on. So
nice.
I am thoroughly excited about that, and I could not be thankful enough for Jasmine and Brian for sharing that with me. And if I can take one more moment of privilege, if you see this lovely little new pet of mine in the background, Mr. At himself, Brian also passed that along to me. So I'm living the wealth of enjoyment here. But yeah, I'm convinced. I am definitely excited to dig into some more things, and especially, seeing in the list, and Brian Fry put in a request for some show notes, maybe some picks for starter comics, so we could get Chris to put something together for us. We could put it on the website, put it in the show notes, so that anybody that's watching, anybody that's listening to this, if you want a jumping off point, Chris can definitely point us in the right direction. Get you headed where you want to go. Because I know I've told him for a long time, every now and then when I saw something, usually it was more like collectible or a cover that I thought was cool, I'm like, hey, put it in my stack. Like, I just have this imaginary stack of stuff that Chris is holding on to for me. But yeah, I'm in. I like, let me dig into some of this.
So maybe Chris, on that note, what might be, so if based on the arguments I've come back with, what would you recommend that if I was going to jump in, what would you recommend that I give a try?
Let's see.
I feel like Dr. Aphra seems very interesting.
Yeah, but for that, I would say read Kieran Gillen's Darth Vader run. Like you know me, I'm always like get in wherever you get in for Star Wars stuff, and that's the same with the comics. Here, I'm gonna put this in the chat real quick. Shameless plug from our bro Axiom. It's a video that Dan and I did a few years back. This is getting started with Star Wars comics.
Awesome.
So you guys can check that out.
Wait.
Really, I would say start with Jason Aaron's 2015 Skywalker Strikes story arc. That was and Vader, the Kieran Gillen's Vader, like the start of it, and that's you're introduced to Dr. Aphra. That's when you see Vader and Luke meet for the first time. That's when Boba Fett. I'm starting to spoil some stuff. That's when. That's when Vader first finds out who that kid is, the rebel pilot who destroyed the Death Star. He finds out his name.
Yeah.
And that was a very powerful scene. And and that's one of the awesome things about these comics is people know these characters so much, they know Star Wars so well that it may seem like it's static images and whatnot, pages and panels and all that stuff. I see that shit moving. That's just me when I read this stuff. This is why I like when I'm checking out Charles Soule's run of Star Wars, and I was talking about like one of these arcs that to me is better than the movies. I see it moving, and it's these stories are so good. I read it in all of their voices. I've got the music playing. I got the sound effects going. Like in my head, the sound effects going. I'm not playing them, But that's why to me it's a full experience. This is one of the reasons why I only do audiobooks, because it gives me that same thing.
Yep. That's cool. Well, good. Well, why don't we get to a couple callers? We have a couple callers waiting, and so why don't we bring in our first caller of the night?
Keep your eyes open, huh?
So, Ray, nice. I love it. I'm telling you, when there's that Zillow Ray connection, it's gonna be we're all gonna celebrate Eric. And Eric, we owe you a
championship belt,
some sort of championship belt. Exactly. All right, I'm gonna hit the clock, and I want to hear your thoughts on comics.
All right.
Salvador LaRocca, you're so much better than this. What you did with the art for the Star Wars mainline run, and what you did for the Darth Vader run, it's uncanny. A lot of just lazy tracing. I've seen you do better work. I'm like, come on, LaRocca. Like, you by the art itself, it is in the entire totem of the work. You have, I hate to say it, and I say this with love because I know he can do better. He has stained the series with laziness of doing this tracing of just using frames from the movie. And I can say this because I am a comic book artist. I am a comic book writer. I know how some people get lazy. I know it. And I'm just like, it looks off-putting. It doesn't look natural. I'm sorry.
This was a particular run?
This was in the Star Wars mainline run, and it was showing up in 2015 Darth Vader run.
Yeah.
Now,
I
there's
will
no indictment on the writing.
Like I've read like his run for Aliens. I don't know if you read the Alien run that he did for Marvel. Like it's like, you know, every character almost damn near based on his face. But LaRocca aside.
Yeah. No, don't get me wrong. I love most Star Wars comics. Okay. And I think I don't think it should be seen as a prerequisite to be a Star Wars fan. But if you want to know more about the characters, and because just reading Wikipedia page is not going to give you the true depth of actually reading it and looking at the art, and then you can see in what is it, in the IDW comic, you can see Luke sent for his sister in real time. There's a frame where he does that. You can see it.
Yep.
Your passion is coming through for sure. Then that's the Zillow Ray will never die.
Yeah,
dude. Thank you. Congratulations on 10 episodes of Honest to Claude. I just
I had Scotty Holiday. Check it out. You can see me possibly talk inflammatory about this book.
Who's that? The courtship?
No, Dark Saber.
Dark Saber.
Kevin Anderson.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Did you ever?
Well, it's nice having me. Well, having you and just seeing you again. I'm glad. You know, we still have Nick.
That's right. I left Eric hanging the week before I went to Nashville. Then I came home with COVID, and I've been downhill ever since. So I'm gonna get up with you soon. We'll make it happen.
All right, man. Good to see you. We'll talk again soon. May the force be with you.
See you, buddy.
Well, if you're thinking of calling in, the link is in the chat. Please come on in and join us. We're going to take one more short break. And when we return, we have a caller waiting in the wings. And we'll be right back with more Force Connect. Back. First of all, I want to just mention we've had a full house almost the entire night tonight. People hanging out with us. I just give a shout out to Jeff and to Half Moth and Sir Eric Brown and Christopher Barker and Jeff, who I said did not say it every time. Brian and Jamie. We have Jasmine, rather, we've just, it's been full. We've loved hanging out with you. If you're listening on the SSW Network stream, on the podcast stream, go over to find Force Connect in your podcast stream, because Force Connect is going to be removed from the SSW Network stream in the next couple months and live on its own. The show has taken on a life of its own. We've been doing this now over a year and change, Nick and I, and then we added Chris about a year ago, and it's been just a blast, and we love doing the show every Friday night to get to hang out and talk about Star Wars. And it's a good thing that we're sort of being convinced that comic books are a good place to get your Star Wars, because man, until that strike ends, that's about all we will talk about, that and the books. So but we are excited. We do have a handful of people waiting to get in. If you want to call in, now is the time to do it. But in the meantime, I am going to run a little video so we can bring in our next caller.
What do you want?
All right, now I have to ask the obvious question right off the bat, because there's a thing in baseball: when you're doing well, when you're in the playoffs, you have a playoff beard. If you're on a hitting streak, you let it go, you don't shave it. There's a mojo, there's a juju there. I know a couple weeks ago, maybe it was the week I was gone 2 weeks ago.
You were not here. Yep.
I heard that the streak got broken. Yeah. Angry wasn't able to make it in, and now the next time I see you, we're back down to a relatively trimmed and controlled beard. Were the streak and the beard tied together? Tell me how we got here.
No, to answer your question, no, they were not tied together. It just happened to have been coincidence. But no, I couldn't make it. I hadn't seen my girlfriend in over 2 months, and she surprised me with a visit. And I was like, "Nah, she's important. I got to spend time with her." So
well done, sir.
You chose wisely.
Yeah,
And you still look very dashing with your beard trimmed nice and neat. So
this will be from now on. It's full on monk. I'm gonna live biblically. I ain't shaving.
Love it.
It's gonna be a great time. So.
Awesome. I support that as well.
All right, dude. We're gonna start the clock on you, and let's hear your take on comics.
I think they have their place. Like Chris said, they definitely for me they're supplemental, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think for a casual person, they shouldn't be mandatory. And I feel like a lot of the issues that I've had with the sequels is a lot of what would develop those characters more happens outside the movies, essentially, and you're kind of forced into the outside media in a lot of ways, like
merchandising.
Yes, right. And like Nien Nunb, for instance, we don't see him die on screen. We had to wait for something else to come out for him to be confirmed that he was dead.
He's dead?
Yeah.
Yep. Oh.
Right. It's stuff like that. It's little things like that. But I do think that they have their place. And like, for me, I loved reading the Thrawn comic books because you finally get to meet like his counterpart and like his rival and his only friend that he considers to be a friend, Alani. Mm-hmm. And she is like his right-hand man. And you wouldn't know that she exists unless you read those comics. So, and Quinlan Vos and Ayla Sakura, they show up in 1998 for the first time. And lo and behold, they're two of the fan favorite characters in the prequels. So, they have their place, and I enjoy reading them. For me, I think old school Dark Horse will forever have a place in my heart.
Yeah.
But I will say that the High Republic comics and the Dr. Aphra ones are top tier, and they deserve more respect and more care because they are fantastic.
Yeah,
they are amazing.
I would throw Bounty Hunters in there. I don't know if you're reading Ethan Sachs' run, but like I said before, so we get one of the major characters that came onto that team was Tasu Leech, who's part of Kanji Club, who we are introduced to in almost said Phantom Menace, Force Awakens, and it's cool to get some kind of backstory on those guys. Like you said, we don't know who they are. They came out of nowhere, but we get their backstory to a degree in the comics, and that it will enrich my viewing whenever I watch Force Awakens again, when those characters pop up on screen, because I will know, at least for Tasu Leech, what he went through, what kind of character he is, what he was like when he was younger, and what got him to, spoilers, leave Tonga's crew and go join Kanji Club. Yeah,
Tell that
so
to
many dope
Kanji
stories
Club.
out there.
And then have his untimely demise at the hands of the Rathar.
Well, do we know? Do we know they could have gotten away?
If we
they
don't
were in
see
the
a death
raid.
on
Those guys
screen,
can't be stopped.
Yeah.
But I think they have their place. I'm happy with them. Some of them I don't really care for, but it's with everything.
Well, that's the whole thing with Star Wars right now.
Yeah.
There is so much of it. You don't have to love all of it. And I think that's the kind of the takeaway. Because we say it all the time here. It's like you don't have to love it. If you're somebody who doesn't love the sequels, that's awesome because you have 40 years of Star Wars and comic books and books and video games.
Yeah. You're occupied.
Go check
Yeah.
that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could still love the universe and not love the movies. And actually, maybe Chris, with all the comic book stuff, you could live in Star Wars without ever seeing a movie. Honestly.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Trust me.
I got my Old Republic games. I'm set. I don't need much else.
That's right. You're awesome.
Tasty. I'm doing I beat it again, just like the dark side because it's just too easy. It's just too easy. But I'm doing light side right now, and it's boring.
Okay, go full light. Okay, have HK in your party, and have the historian in your party too, and you'll get some of the best back and forth dialogue you'll ever hear in a video game.
Yeah, I haven't gone to the Enclave yet. Okay, so yeah,
have the two of them in your party when you're full on light side, and you're gonna have some of the best dialogue ever.
Okay.
They criticize each other, they call each other out, they name call each other, and you're kind of caught in the middle, and it's awesome.
Hell yeah, we'll do. How in my 9 playthroughs of this game have I never done those two?
Because they're not thought of very well. Like HK, yes, but historian not so much.
I forgot he was a thing.
Yep. I got you.
Awesome. Well, Angry, thank you so much. I'm glad you're back. I'm glad you're okay.
Yep.
We were worried.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. When I realized when the show came to an end, I was like, Angry Tasty Cakes did not go. But I'm glad it was because your girlfriend came to visit.
Yeah.
It was for good things, and that's awesome. So
I would say that I deserve a mulligan, but I'm not that petty.
Well, I think what this does is it allows Eric to take a week off, and he doesn't have to feel too worried about it.
Or we give him a bye week.
Yeah,
there you go.
True.
That's
we
right.
could do that.
Definitely
do that.
There you go.
But
the streak's alive.
All right, man. Thank you so much. We'll see you again soon.
Buddy.
See ya. What was that? Yeah. So, hey, I'm not going to say I'm convinced, but I'm much more intrigued. And I literally will probably, not tomorrow. I will go on Sunday because tomorrow my band is playing at the Meadowlands in New Jersey.
You are.
Whoa.
Yeah. So Metallica's playing tonight. We're playing tomorrow. And then Metallica's coming back on Sunday. So
you're saying
for you. I was about to say, yeah, they're opening up for you. And that's
yeah. Well, we were like, would you guys mind not playing on Saturday? And they're like, all right, yeah. Well, no, I mean seriously, that we're playing for that. We'll be the house band at the racetrack at the Meadowlands, so it'll be fun.
Love it.
Awesome.
But that said, Sunday I'm going to go to my comic book shop. I'm going to find a trade paperback version of. One of those
Strikes.
the Skywalker Strikes.
I'll send you a visual list. How many are you trying to get? I mean, you start with like the one for now.
Yeah, let me do one run for now, and and here's what I'll do on our next show next Friday night. I'll give my honest review based on all the shit that I told you about the way I feel about comics. I will bring it all together. I'll bring it all home, and I'll do it. I'll do it that way. So But as we prepare to leave, Chris, what is happening on Bro Axiom this week?
Well, let's see. There's going to be Dan's taking a much needed vacation with he and his wife and little Nightwing, as I call him, his son Grayson. Just because Dick Grayson, Nightwing. I'm a DC nerd. So yeah, no shooting the poodoo this week. No Bro Axiom gaming on Tuesday. We do have some comics coming out. So Charles Soule's Star Wars will be coming out, and also Greg Pak's Darth Vader will be coming out this week, and I can't wait to read. Oh man, I can't wait to read those too. Yeah, so we have that. Star Bros are also on a bit of a hiatus, at least until the fall. Yeah, so that's about it for right now for Bro Axiom.
That's awesome. And Nick, you're still recovering from COVID. We have a couple of guests who are in the wings, but honestly, I think right now Around the Galaxy is, I don't want to say we're not on any official hiatus, but we are planning to bring in some of our some good guests when we get that opportunity to do so. So I don't think we're in any rush to bring in guests. I just love that we get to do this every Friday night and keep things going. So Nick, anything else to add?
I don't know, because I was gone last week. If you talked about this, we made a decision about Podathon. Did you? About that last Friday?
No, I did not talk about that. So we should hit that. Yep.
With the ongoing strikes with the Writers Guild, with SAG-AFTRA, we decided that it was in the best interest of Podathon, for the event, for the guests, for the folks that we wanted to get on board for that. We are postponing Podathon. Originally, it was going to be on 9/9/23. We've reached out to all of our partners. Everybody understands. But in order for us to put on the best possible event we can, get guests on who can talk about the amazing work they do, certainly within Star Wars, whether it's on TV shows, movies, producing, writing, directing, whatever it is, we want to put on the best possible product for Make-A-Wish. And we wanted to be able to do that. So we are going to push it back. We don't have a set date yet. Of course, it's going to be dependent on when the strike ends. We're going to hopefully do something in September, a little something, to, tide us over to talk about that a little bit more. But for the time being, we are postponing Podathon in, conjunction with the strikes that are going on, because it just is really hard to pull off the event we know we can do when there's so much else going on.
Absolutely. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, it's really important. And we will be keeping you up to date on that. You can follow the Podathon on Twitter /X or whatever it's called today. And also on Instagram. And we'll keep you updated on that, or just follow the SSW network on all those other billions of social media channels. But guys, this was awesome. Thank you so much, Chris, for kind of talking me into giving comics a chance once again. Nick, may the force be with you.
Always.
Just one more round, friend, then homeward bound, friend. Don't forget me in your dreams. Just one more song, friend, and then so long, friend. The nights get shorter, it seems. Just one more rhyme, friend. Yes, it's a crime, friend. But you know time, friend. Time can fly. So it's good night, friend. Good night, but not goodbye.